Welcome to the Football Coaching Life, brought to you by Football Coaches Australia, Making Media, the podcast people. These are the conversations, the stories and the insights of Australia's men and women football coaches, the people responsible for developing players and teams, and in the main, these stories haven't been told. We're honoured today to have one of Australia's most recognisable coaches, Joe Montemuro, with us. Joe's probably best known for his time at Melbourne City, winning a couple of championships, going through a season undefeated, and then continuing that amazing work across Arsenal with the women's team in the FA's Women's Super League. Welcome, Joe, to Football Coaching Life, and a very happy New Year to you. A very happy Australia Day to you.
Absolutely. No, thank you for the opportunity, and I'm humbled when you ask, Gary, because you've probably interviewed some amazing people that have contributed to the game. Thank you for the opportunity, and as I said, I hope I keep up to the standards that's already been put out there by some amazing coaches.
Joe, you are. I think that goes with what everyone knows about you. You're a very humble man. You've achieved some wonderful things in coaching. You're a career coach. And I read in a blog piece I think you did for the Arsenal website that there's often two pathways into coaching. There's the pathway of being an elite player that rolls into quite often an elite coaching job. And then there's the career coach that doesn't necessarily doesn't play for the Socceroos or the Matildas, but goes away and does their journey, loves the game, and that evolves into coaching in some capacity, which grows and grows. And it's probably fair to say that that's been your coaching story so far, yeah?
Yeah, I'd say, the journey, you get asked quite a lot. And, you probably, even in your journey, Gary, you get asked quite a lot what that journey is. Is it quite black and white? And it isn't. It's quite messy. So it's very, very hard to sort of pinpoint, what that journey, beholds to sort of get to where you want to achieve. And yeah, look, I mean, I obviously wasn't never afforded to have played at a high level like yourself, and to have had the accolades as a footballer. I was a very average and mediocre sort of footballer, and I think the interesting thing about that is that you sort of embark on that coaching journey quite young, if you still want to be involved in the game. And I think even having the little experiences that I did have in the old NSL and having the opportunity to play a little bit in the lower leagues overseas, I think you looked at the game differently, and I think that journey, if you probably look at players or coaches that haven't had the opportunity to play at high levels, they usually embark on that journey quite young. You start becoming a student of the game quite early, because your playing doesn't get in the way, put it this way.
You mentioned black and white before, and your youth playing and the initial part of your senior football playing career was black and white with Brunswick Juventus. Back in the days where, like many of us, our parents migrated from Europe, we came here, and so many of us found a football club that tied in with our heritage. How important was being around that club and being able to play as a junior and then as a 16-year-old, get your opportunity in the NSL to play, to debut in the NSL at a young age?
It was sort of it was a bit of both. It was an honour and a privilege, because we know what the massive migrant contribution made to not only football but to life in Australia. So it was a privilege to be part of that. To be part of that, but it was also I think really, really important in terms of being part of an exciting time, I think, in football in Australia, because some of the players that were there at the time, had amazing careers in Europe and amazing careers when they were in their home country. So yeah, to be part of your I suppose of that social demographic that that immigration sort of push in what made Australia, I think, from that perspective to what it is today, but also to be surrounded around amazing professionals that had amazing careers in Europe and obviously had, for some reason or another, had to leave, especially some of the players from the Balkan states. They had to leave because of certain political issues in their country, but to be honoured to be part of them and have learned from them and have played with them, and then a lot of the British players that came over had amazing careers. So it was twofold. It was an honour, but it was also a real experience and privilege to have grown up in that era of football. And
Joe, that organisation, I think, gave you your first opportunity in coaching. You went and played overseas and came back to Australia around about 28 and I think started to coach within the Brunswick junior program.
Yes. Yeah, different times, leaving it where it was a club in the NSL and having the accolades that it did and producing the players that it did and producing the people. I mean, we need to sort of not forget the social interaction that we all have as friends from our football and junior days. So a lot of my lifelong friends were came from that little ground in the back streets of Brunswick. So that was incredible. And then to come back to a club that was predominantly just a junior club. It didn't have a senior team, but it had factionalised into different scenarios. Like everything, you embark on a journey that's that you love, and you hope you can sort of instill your ideas and forever learn.
How important was that first opportunity for you?
Really important, and I think even the context of it was the ability to totally develop in terms of the group, the team, your ideas to instill some methods and ways of thinking that weren't there. So it was all fresh and it was all new. So there wasn't the pressure of having to achieve certain things. It was a club that was definitely in the development stage, and I sort of was lucky enough to be part of that ride in developing my ideas, and I was able to obviously make mistakes and have that opportunity to keep the process going through those errors and learning and just constantly developing.
I love that, being able to make mistakes. The amount of times that comes up. There's no perfect coach that doesn't make mistakes, and we've all made them on the journey. Through your time as a player in those early days as a coach, was there anyone that stood out and had the most influence on you that made you go, wow, there is something to this coaching thing. This is something that I really want to do?
I think I was always very, very curious and very what's the word? At that stage, you're trying to understand what you do, and I don't think there was a lot of influences. I think I looked a lot towards what made successful coaches successful, and then I think in that there's an interpretation of what is success. Is it just the results at the end of the week? Is it just winning championships? Is it that what is success? And I think I always get drawn back into people. We're just the vehicle for 11 players on a Sunday that start and 20 other players to be the best that they can be. And we're lucky enough to have that the vehicle of football to be able to teach them a football, but life and what it means to be part of a group. So I think I always looked towards leaders that were more than football, that were leaders in in with people and how they sustained this ability to make it the best place it could be. So I don't think I had one person, but I always looked at people that were able to bring the best out of groups, and it might not have been football. It could have been other sports. So yeah, I just always keep coming back to we are effective in strong positions to affect change in life, and we use football as the vehicle. And I think I learned that really quickly. So yeah, so that's where it's sort of that whole idea of the people developed.
Yeah. You're listening to The Football Coaching Life, brought to you by Football Coaches Australia and Making Media the Podcast People. We're honoured today to have Arsenal women's coach Joe Montemuro with us on Australia Day here in Australia. Joe, what then is coaching?
Great question. I think it's the beauty of it is that it evolves. The beauty of it is that you never stop learning. There's no end point. There's no end point, because even the day that I'm not working as the coach of a club or a national team, I think you're always learning in coaching. So I think it's evolution. I think it's amazing that it evolves. Not only in this constant development from a personal perspective, but also the game changes. We've seen massive change over the last 18 months with the scenario with this pandemic. So the game is different. So for me, it's consistency of development, and probably referring back to the earlier discussion, it's about people. It's about how we can affect lives, how we can affect people in being better. So for me, it's development, and for me, it's people.
Thanks, mate. I love that. In terms of your development, I know that you've got a UEFA A licence and a UEFA Pro licence. I think you completed both of those in Italy. You've also got an Australia A licence. You've got a Master of Sports Coaching, which you got here at the University of Queensland, and I believe you're currently doing a PhD in sports psychology performance. So you're an intellectual in here as well. How can I ask, was there a significant difference between studying coaching in Italy and studying coaching in Australia?
Yeah, I think we probably got into the how to coach in Australia. We were coming up with processes on the best processes on how to coach, and what we felt was a way of how to do things. Where I think in Europe it's more about what we're coaching and modern trends, studying what's happening in defensive phases with certain clubs or with certain teams. So I think that were probably the two significant things. There wasn't so much on the coaching process, on how we should be a coach or how we should be a leader in Europe. It was more about studying what we're coaching, which I think both of them have their strengths, because I think some of the coaching processes used in the modern courses in Australia are very, very significant, are very, very important, because obviously the base is probably a little bit different to Europe. Where in Europe you're probably getting a lot of people that have been in the game from a cultural perspective, that they probably start to challenge you a little bit more in what are the latest trends and what's happening and principles and so on and so on. So they were probably the two most significant things. And I think the best case scenario is the marrying of the two, how we can find that balance. I think the biggest thing in the European models is that you can be you, and your personality is what makes you the coach that you are and makes you the person that you are. And I think that that is never questioned. How you get your message across and how you believe your team should be put together and how you believe your coaching stimulus should be affecting the team is important. So I think that's one thing that I really would love to see a little bit more of, is that you as a person, and your way of getting your message across is your personality, is your strong part. And I think sometimes when we do get involved too much in the how to coach, we try to sometimes we try to pigeonhole and probably put people in little corridors.
Fair to say that in Europe maybe there isn't one way of doing it. There isn't a right way of doing it. The right way is what you believe as a coach and your ability to get that message across to your players and teams and impact their behaviours and performance.
Yeah, I think that's it's true to say, Gary, and I mean, and that's where your beliefs and the way you believe the game should be played and what you think are your I wouldn't say non-negotiables, what you think your way of coming across is important to you. I think you've also got to be able to listen and see and understand what else is happening out there, and that will affect your ability to be the coach that you are. But I think it's about having strong beliefs, but more importantly, having those strong beliefs. As the buzzwords, the philosophies, and all those are bantered around quite a lot. Yeah. But for me, it's about your beliefs, but more importantly, how you bring your beliefs to life. How do you make that everyday language? How do you do it in your training exercises? How do you do it in your style of play? It's that transfer from belief to the method, to the way you bring it across, which is the magic for me.
Oh, I love it. Absolutely love it. Joe, you've had on your journey, you've coached young players, you've coached youths and juniors, you've coached men, you've coached women, senior men, senior women. You started with no license, and now you've got UEFA Pro license, and you're working at a very different level. How has your coaching changed or developed over the journey?
I use one word along that journey, and that's messiness. And I think it is messy along the way. It is, because you see things and you think, I'm going to use that. That's great. We all copy as coaches. We are the biggest copiers in the world, and it's fantastic. And you see it and you think, this is a great exercise. It's fantastic, but you probably do it and you don't even know what you're doing at times. You don't even know, well, what exactly am I doing here, sort of thing. And we've all done it. It's great because we want the session to look good. We want the session, we're trying to impress our players, and it's fantastic. And I think that's where this messiness idea, because you sort of do things because you think it looks good and you think it's about you, and you're trying to impress. And I think what happens along that journey is you start grabbing little bits and pieces. And then I think the biggest thing for me was probably about 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago. I sat back and I said, what do you really believe in as a coach? What do you think are your principles in the way you want your teams to play? And I sat back and I just did a really simple exercise, the pros, the cons, all that sort of stuff, the strengths, the weaknesses. And there were 3 or 4 things that always kept standing out, 3 or 4 things that kept coming out. And then I just sat back and said, okay, well, how do I bring this to life? How do I make this happen? And I think the messiness was needed, the cloudiness, the copying, the trying of this, the doing of that, the trying to be someone else. I needed that to sort of arrive to the clarity that you've got now on how you want your teams to play and how you bring that to life. And I think that's the beauty of this journey, because I think if you find the way straight away, I think you're doomed to fail. I think you're doomed to fail. I think you need that craziness, that messiness, I think, the most successful coaches in the world, I do believe have a real clarity and simplicity to the way that they defend, to the way that they attack, to the way they do things, and the way they go about things, that their principles don't change. Yeah, they might tinker with certain scenarios for a game because, you're playing against a team that might do something different, but the core values and the core principles are always there. And then you're able to, bring it to life, and then you're able to, make your players believe that, and the group and your staff believe that. And that's where I think the magic is. So the messiness to the clarity, I think, is the most important part of that journey.
Love it. I love it. Have you had a coaching mentor on your journey?
Well, I studied your philosophies and ways at Altona Magic in that great period, and sustaining success. So I'd have to say there was many along the journey. And funnily enough, you sort of you study ways, and you study many people. But I think the great thing about growing up in Australia, I'm probably going off track a little bit here. Growing up in Australia is that we didn't have a genuine way. We had I think an identity, but there was all different ways and different things that were introduced. So we're always grasping for what we could grab. But in terms of mentors, probably not in football. I had other people that in life that I'd probably would revert back to, because for me it's about the people. So I think football was always the vehicle. So I loved the idea of studying what people were doing, how they were playing, how they coached, what their ways were doing, what their ways were of getting across the message. But I think I had more people externally that from a life perspective that I always reverted to.
Yeah. You a mentor by job description with Aaron Dantino, have I said that correctly? Yep. Who I'd never heard of until I was doing the research here. He's obviously a talented young coach here in Australia. Have you found that because of this, I'm going to call it the newfound success, have people been drawn to you to ask for your opinion and help in their coaching journey, or have you managed to avoid that right now? You're obviously very, very busy and need to be focused on what you're doing.
Yeah, look, I'm always open to discussing. Like we're having a discussion now. Yeah. I mean, if someone can take something away and assist. Assist their journey. It's great, and I'm always open to share, training, and I'm pretty open because it's probably, I wouldn't say it's egotistical. I'd say it's more that I'm more than happy for people to use training methods and ways that are working for me. As a base and as a module to go forward. So I'm always happy to discuss and have a discussion. As I said, I don't know what I can give. That's the thing. But yeah, always happy to really to discuss football and discuss stuff. And just on that, from an official perspective, I'm doing a lot of work with UEFA at the moment as a mentor to young coaches. So and to be honest, I love it. I love it, and I love being involved in coaches' education. It's something that's is really close to my heart.
Yeah, and Football Coaches Australia, you were very generous with your time during COVID here with a couple of the webinars. So, mate, all credit to you. You've been a student of the game, and you're obviously there's an intellectual inside that very practical football head as well. Have other sports and other coaches from other sports influenced the way you've coached at times? Have there been learnings that you've been able to take on board, relationships that you've built?
I think we always have to revert back to what's happening in the sporting landscape. I think there are some wonderful things happening in terms of leadership, in terms of the way leaders work. But the interesting thing is, especially now I'm doing a PhD in sustaining success in sporting cultures, how do teams sustain ongoing success, and words that are bantered around our culture, and what culture is really people. It's people, because and everyone's reverting back to the All Blacks. They all want to be the All Blacks in terms of the culture and all that sort of stuff. And I think it's so sporadic that you can't grab one way of doing thing and put it in your environment and make it work. But I think you can grab words. I think you can grab ways. I think you can grab ideas from all sports. So I think in leadership, in creating cultures, I think it's really, really important. Speaking with the sports scientists and the strength and conditioning guys, they'd probably say that they grab a lot of coaching, affordability to. Or the way the methods of training modules and training stimuluses from other sports and try to bring them into football, but they need to understand that it's always football. So like you've probably had the push and pull with your strength and conditioning and S&C guys, but it is an important part of the game. And you have to make it work for your environment and for your group, and that's the most important thing. But yeah, definitely, if you need to look at other sports and other environments to see what they're doing, because I think it's part of that development and growth.
I'd like to dig down a little bit deeper there, because I think that's a really interesting point from the start of your coaching journey, where there would have been you probably washing some bibs, getting the cones, carrying around the balls in your car, to today where, you used to be the leader of the team and now you're the leader of the coach of the team, but you're also the leader and coach of a range of different assistant coaches and support staff. How have you found the right way to balance that and juggle that so that you can have enough influence over the women that take the park for you on the weekends?
Yeah, great question, because it has become crucial, because now the demands on having other areas of expertise are huge. Between performance psychologists, and now you don't talk about just a doctor. You talk about a sports performance doctor. You're talking about individual development coaches. You're talking about not one analyst, but probably a couple of analysts. And I think the biggest thing is managing the expectations and managing the probably the egos, because that's a huge thing. So I think there are two big things for me. First of all, me as a person and having consistency in message is big, and having a level of humility is another one of those words that's in philosophy and culture that's been used. That's sort of they've been bantered around, but having that consistent humility, and I think that's really, really important, because they're always going to revert to you as the leader. The second and probably the most important thing for me is solid beliefs, solid. Non-negotiable. I don't like to use that word too much, but I'm going to use it. Rules that always revert back to football, and this is where your football beliefs are really, really important, because they have to be everything that everyone reverts back to. Everyone must revert back to, okay, we want to play football this way. We believe it's the best way that we can be the best that we can do, and this is how we're going to do it. And I've got my physios that believe in the way we play, my S&C or sports scientists or physical preparation, whatever the word you want to use, always make it a football discussion. They never make it we ran 15 kilometres today or 138 kilometres. It always needs to be a football discussion. How do we do that? Well, I sit down with them. I say, okay, we want to play football like this. This is what I need my athletes to be able to do. And you now, with your expertise, now have to understand within the way we coach the football to bring out the best in them physically, to be able to do what we need to do. So already you're making them believe in your football way. So for me, it always comes back to football. It always comes back to the core of who we are, what we want to be, how we want to play football. And then I give them the empathy. I give each department the empathy to come up with the best way of doing what they do, but always talking our football language, always talking about how we want to play football. So they never divert. They never go somewhere else. Oh, in rugby, they're doing kilometres per minute. Yeah, but we play a short possession game where I need the quality of the football action to be up here. They need to recover quickly when they lose the ball and then create another action that's really clear. I'm not worried about distances. I'm worried about my players doing good football actions in short areas and recovering quickly. Not worried. Okay, so you bring them back to line. So when everyone's seeing football through that same lens, seeing football the way we want to play through that focus, it always brings my staff back into that belief. So there's the belief, how we want the game to be played, but then you have the opportunity to make your department the best that it can be within the belief that we believe the game should be played. So we don't divert. And I think that's the best way. And for me, it's quite simple when we have discussions. It's, okay, well, how does that make us a better football team in the way we want to play? And that's the question I ask. So you want to bring this? No problems. How does that make us the best football team that we want to be in the way we believe football should be played? And I think that just brings a unity. And I just call it create a football culture, ask football questions, go back to football discussions, and you reel them back in from going away from a tangent. And I think that's that for me is paramount.
Love it. I love it. You're listening to The Football Coaching Life, brought to you by Football Coaches Australia and Making Media the podcast people. With us today, Joe Montemurro, head coach at Arsenal, the women's Super League team from the UK. Joe's joined us wee small hours of the morning. Got snowed off on the weekend, Joe. Would have been a local derby against West Ham. How does a good Melbourne boy deal with snow in London?
It has its challenges. The snow, the actual snow was a relief. It was just something different because it's sort of been. Obviously with the situation that we are in a lockdown. I'm blessed that at least 3, 4, 5 times a week I can get out on the park and coach. But we're still in a pretty brutal place in terms of lockdown here at the moment, which has affected all of us. But it's I don't want to sound like we're sort of used to it. There always are 2 or 3 games snowed out, or the ice gets pretty bad in this time of the year. So then all it does, it just banks up towards the end of the year when we've got to play the games. And fit them in between an FA Cup or a League Cup or a Champions League game. So it becomes just a bit of a backfall of games, but all part of the fun.
How have you found coaching through this time of COVID. You know, I don't think it doesn't matter what sort of qualifications or studying you've done. It's been so new and unique. How have you dealt with that? How has the team dealt with it? How do you build team unity when you just don't spend anywhere near as much time together?
Yeah, I think Gary, the word unique is spot on, and it's unique, but also we can really learn off this, because we've all had to become very creative. We've all had to be, really different in the way we go about things, and it starts for me from the real basic things. I mean, with all the protocols of testing, with the inability of even just having a discussion, with 3 or 4 players before training, with pulling a player aside after training and just saying, hey, let's have a chat, because we've got limited time on the pitch. We have to get on at a certain time. We have to get off at a certain time. So even just the way we set up, the training. We can't get on, half an hour earlier or an hour earlier, because, there are certain strict guidelines of when we can get in, when we can get out. A video presentation is cut down to, 6-7 minutes. 10 minutes, mine were never long anyway, but you can't have individual discussions with players on video after training. Even my routine of going to my favourite coffee place before training, that's gone. The staff getting together after a match and having a glass of wine at our local pub, that's gone. So, and I say that, we all smirk about it and stuff like that, but that's all part of the package of what we do. That's been stripped away. That's gone. So the training now, the attitude and the way that players come to training is different, because they can't even just have their normal routine in the morning. So now the training has to be probably a little bit different. Has to be a little bit more, jovial and fun, and to get what you need out of the session has to be a little bit more, because they've only got that hour and they're looking forward to that hour or hour and a half, of the day. So we've had to be very, very, very creative, and I think there's been some really good learning. There's been some really good learning on even our training approach, to not, that we've only got limited time, that we've only got limited resources and restrictions, that we need to adhere to. So we've had to change even the stimulus of getting the information in at a little bit more, within the restricted time. So it has affected us all. And then, I'll talk about, the playing in front of, three people and four, and four groundsmen. It's not great. It's not great. It's not great. It's affected, and it really makes you understand the importance of fans and crowds and the people and the people associated with football. So there has been creativity and a definite appreciation of what we do.
Thanks. Why do you do it, Joe? Why do you coach?
I ask that question every day. I think the biggest buzz that I get is, and I'll use an example. I was back in Melbourne. I think it was in March, and I got this random call from, and I answered, and I go, "Hi, I'm such and such player. You coached me in 1998 at Brunswick Juventus. We had this great under-18 team, and I was just thinking about you the other day and the effect you had on just the way I run my business. I'm now, I'm running this business, and just some of the way you used to go about things, and it really affected me. Now I've got kids and so on and so on. And I think it's that. I think it's those little moments that make you appreciate, that you have an effect in your demeanour, in your language, in what you do, and I think if you use that for the betterment of someone, if you use that for the betterment of someone learning or taking some life skill within their life for the rest of their life, that's going to make them a better person. I think that's the reward. And every day I get the opportunity to use the vehicle of football, which we love, to teach and to make someone better. I think that's the biggest reward for me. And I'll use the same analogy I used in an earlier discussion with you, Gary. It when does it end? It never ends. It just you can be involved in the game, whenever, whatever, however, and that's what I love about it. It never ends. If this gets taken away from me tomorrow, great, fantastic. But there'll always be a learning process. By watching a game or just going to watch a training session or just reading a book or seeing how a coach does something or seeing how a leader does something. It's just that constant quest of development.
Football for life, growing people. Just love it, mate. Absolutely love it. Lived in London for the first 15 years of my life, and I'm a locked-on Chelsea FC fan. And unfortunately, this morning, Frank Lampard's been dismissed. Part of the life as a coach. How important do you think is it for coaches to develop resilience if they're going to make a career of it?
It's very difficult. It's very difficult. It's gotten harder and harder with the onset of social media and the access of the floating opinions of everybody, it's probably the word that needs to be your bread and butter as a coach, and I think it's probably even more difficult for younger coaches that are probably affected by the comments of the greater public, of the greater fans, of people who have agendas and so on and so on. So it's definitely become a lot more difficult. And the higher you go, the more exposure you have, the more I suppose scrutiny you put up with. And it's really interesting because I think the biggest thing that you probably have to understand coming into the game these days is that your tenure is probably a lot shorter than what it was 10, 15 years ago in the days of the Wengers, in the days of the Fergusons, where they were building whole of club processes. They weren't building just a football team, and that's why we need to applaud the great people of that generation, because they've created that platform for other industries to flourish within the game. So I think there is a big pressure nowadays on because of the opinions, and I think it goes back to resilience. But I also think it goes back to your beliefs and what you believe success is. What is success to you? What does it mean? Is it player development? Is it style of football? Is it just results? Is it win-loss ratio? What does it mean to you? What does football mean to you? And I think what happens on that journey is that for me, it's the style, it's the way. For me, is huge. I gauge my 90 minutes after a game as what have we achieved in terms of the way I want the game played. And I'm solid with that. I'm very, very, probably hard-headed on that. And look, let's not shy away from the fact that I've been blessed with some great teams and some great athletes, and some really important jobs. But you have to be resilient. You have to be resilient in your beliefs more than just surviving in the game. And I think that's really, really important.
Yeah, thanks, mate. With some of those great teams and players, what have been some of your most enjoyable moments?
Yeah, there's been many. There's been many. I think it all started, I suppose, with teams that I had in the old Victorian Premier League and the NPL. I mean, even places like George Cross and Green Gully and South Melbourne. We had some amazing times, and I think it's really interesting because you assess them, and it was making things happen with very little. You had little. And again, I can only make the comparisons of what I've got now and of what we can access now and so on. But even just little things, some of the games, some of the people, there's so many. But I think that the fact that I think one of my biggest landmarks and achievements is that I think I can walk away from every job. I hope so. Well, no one's told me so. From every job, having sort of maybe left something that someone else can take as a baton to make better. And I can always go back to, well, Chaplain Reserve doesn't exist anymore. I can go back to those places and say hello to people. And I think that's probably my biggest achievement, that I haven't left in an acrimonious or bad way. I've always left it in a I wouldn't say a better state, but in a way where I can always go back there and hopefully say hello to people.
Good on you. You're listening to the Football Coaching Life, brought to you by Football Coaches Australia and the podcast people, Making Media, the podcast people. You're listening to the wisdom, passion and honesty of Joe Montemuro, head coach at Arsenal Women, who play in the FA Women's Super League. Joe, we're on the downhill run now. A few more questions to go, and we've really appreciated your time today. Can I ask you, what are some of the most valuable lessons you've learned as a coach?
Yeah, that's a brilliant question. I think be honest. Be honest. I think the hard discussions are usually the best ones. Are usually the ones that are the ones that you get the most value out of. So learn to have the hard discussions. Learn to have the honest discussions. I think selflessness is probably the biggest one for me. That it's important to do something for someone or a group of people and not want something back. I think that's probably the biggest thing, because everything that we do in coaching, everything that we do in our amazing profession has to be selfless. Because if you want rewards for everything that you do, then I think you've picked the wrong industry, because we do so many things, but we can't sit there and waiting. Well, hey, I've designed the best session in the world. I should be, rewarded for that. Well, hang on, buddy. But selflessness is huge for me, and selflessness also is a word that I try to instill with my players, because I'll use a really, really simple and banal analogy. A wide player may have to make this run 14, 15, 16 times, but you might not get the ball. The pass might be into the striker, because that's the better pass for us to probably create a goal scoring opportunity. But they need to understand that run is for the team, and it's an important aspect for something else to happen. You're not going to get the rewards for making that run, but you need to understand that as a collective, it's an important part of what you do. So until you learn to be selfless, I don't think you can reach the heights that you want to as a coach and as a footballer. So that's probably the biggest lesson.
So following on from that, what does success look like? Success
looks like an internal gut feeling that that you've done the right thing by yourself and by everyone, and you can walk away from that saying, you know what, I did the best and most honest and the right thing in every session, in every discussion, in every plan, in every approach, that I know that that I can walk away from something knowing that I've done that, and that for me is success.
Love it. You've got a few Aussies on your staff. You got one on your off-field staff, and then Caitlin Ford, Steph Cately, and Lydia Williams on your team. Anything planned for Australia Day? I don't even know if you can get together, but is there anything happening in London for the Aussies on Arsenal women?
We can't get together, but I'm sure we'll get some virtual something going. But they've been absolutely brilliant, and it's such an honour to coach them and give them the opportunity in these environments, against some of the best teams and players in the world, to show how important some of the players we have in Australia, and hopefully we can give them the exposure to the best in the world, and it's a great honour for me to give them that, and for them to be part of this really exciting time.
Yeah. Lydia's got a wonderful story, I think, on the Arsenal website this morning. In my own words, that's on the Arsenal website, I think.
I haven't seen it.
Remarkable read about her life and journey as a young Australian growing up with a mum and dad. Wonderful stuff. Final question, Joe. If you could talk to Australian coaches, coaches around the world, this is a podcast, who knows who's going to listen to it, what would be one final piece of wisdom you'd leave them with?
Wisdom, the philosophy of the wise man, huh?
Wow, sage-like.
Wow. It's I think use your personality and your beliefs and your character to be you. Be you as a coach. Don't be someone else. And I think you'll find that honesty and true to yourself will come out in your coaching, and once that comes out, then the people around you will believe in the way you go about things. So I think that's something that I think is very, very important in your journey.
Thanks, Joe. Just remarkable. Appreciate your honesty and your passion there. There's a wealth of learning for us coaches back here in sunny downtown Australia. You're listening to The Football Coaching Life, brought to you by Football Coaches Australia and Making Media the podcast people. If you've enjoyed today's podcast, if you want to learn more about Football Coaches Australia, please go to footballcoachesaus.org.au, where you can buy a membership, you can renew a membership. And at the end of all that, Joe Montemuro, thank you. You've been a star.
Thanks, Gary, and I must applaud you on the way you've said my second name. Unbelievable.